So you make the remark that if universal common ancestry is true, you ought to find evidence of it in the fossil record in regards to transitional fossils. Your point would be that you don't find those transitional fossils or smooth gradation. And what you instead find is a number of explosions, Cambrian explosion, the Great Ordovician biodiversification event. You can also talk about fish groups, land animals, and others. Before talking about these different aspects of it, I would like you to touch on the question of transitional fossils. In the past, I think this would have been decades and decades and decades ago, some people thought that it may have been a sampling artifact, that there just wasn't enough fossils that had been found. And if we did more searching, those types of transitionals will be found. But if you can touch on that first and then actually go and look at the different, from a young Earth creationist perspective, supposed explosions, but from a standard view, the different explosions of life in the fossil record, Cambrian explosion and others, that would be great.
Yeah, so the history of life shows a pattern of explosions where organisms appear abruptly without clear and direct evolutionary precursors. Now, of course, as you mentioned, Paul, the most well-known example is the Cambrian explosion, where most of the major animal phyla appear about in the Cambrian period in a sort of a geological eye blink without any clear animals that could have served as evolutionary precursors. So that's a real problem for common ancestry, because you have all these different types of organisms appearing in the fossil record around the same time, geologically speaking, without any clear evidence of their sharing a common ancestor and developing from direct evolutionary precursors. It's a major problem for common ancestry, but that's not the only explosion. There's also, as you said, a great Ordovician biodiversification event.
Hold on. I want to pause on that one right there. I would like you to elaborate on what actually the Great Ordovician biodiversification event is for people who have no idea what it is.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a rapid appearance of many invertebrate organisms in the fossil record, marine invertebrates, basically. Some of it would be planktonic type organisms, some of it would be shelled organisms, but basically the abrupt appearance of an explosive appearance of many new types of marine invertebrates over a, say, according to the standard view, would be about a 40 million year period. So that's kind of the idea. If you go later in the fossil record, there is a bird explosion. There's an angiosperm or flowering plant explosion. There is a tetrapod explosion. There have been trouble tracing dinosaurs due to the lack of transitional forms. There is did I mention the bird explosion? I think I did.
Yeah, you did.
There's also a mammal explosion. And then even the origin of our own genus Homo has been called a Big Bang model of the genus Homo, of the origin of Homo, because of the abrupt appearance of our own genus. So yeah, there's a lot of different evidence that supports this pattern of explosions. I'm probably missing a few. If you read Gunter Beckley and Stephen Meyer's chapter in the book Theistic Evolution, that's one of the most, I would say, comprehensive treatments of all the different explosions that have happened in the history of life.
Okay. All right. So those explosions are cases in which you have one layer of the fossil record showing a bunch of different organisms appearing. And if you look lower beneath that layer, you don't find a common ancestor to those organisms, and also at the same time find the transitional forms between that common ancestor and those organisms appearing. Is that correct? Or do I need clarification there?
I think that's basically right. You could call it a layer, but you have, obviously you have structure to the geological record, and you find that there are no direct evolutionary precursors lower in the geological record. So these organisms sort of come into existence rapidly and abruptly without evidence of how they evolved. And I mean, I want to make it clear that this pattern of explosions and a lack of transitional forms is very well attested to by leading evolutionary scientists. It's not like it's just ID people that are saying this. It's pretty well accepted today that the pattern of transitional forms that was predicted by Darwin's theory did not materialize, and that we get this abrupt appearance of different taxa, over and over and over again. For example, Jeffrey Schwartz, a biologist at the University of Pittsburgh, he says, we are still in the dark about the origin of most major groups of organisms. They appear in the fossil record as Athena did from the head of Zeus, full blown and raring to go. in contradiction to Darwin's depiction of evolution as resulting from the gradual accumulation of countless infinitesimally minute variations. So that's a great example of what I'm talking about here. You get these organisms that appear like they're fully formed, they're ready to just be themselves. They're not evolving piecemeal, one step at a time. And a lot of people recognize this poses a challenge to Darwin's theory.
Thank you for listening. Credible Faith is a global missions-minded apologetics ministry with content available in 7 different languages across 7 websites: German, Russian, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and English. If you would like to support the global apologetics work of Credible Faith, go to crediblefaith.org and click on the donate icon. If you would like me to give an apologetics workshop or participate in a debate at your university, or if you would like me to give a Great Commission missions conference or apologetics conference at your church, get in touch with me through the Contact Us section of the Credible Faith website. You can also submit a request through the website to get Credible Faith's monthly email. If you are a native speaker of Russian, German, Italian, French, Spanish, or Portuguese, and if you notice that an essay from the English website is not available on the Credible Faith website for your language, feel free to get in touch with me about translating the essay, and I would read through your translated material for quality control and the desire to see content from the essay made available in your language. Thank you for listening, and have a great night.